All right, you got to watch Justė play. What did you think? I was kind of watching the back and forth in the Discord. It didn't sound like she played very well, and maybe even got yanked a little earlier than you thought. What have you seen from her game of late?
I'm more of like an off and on watcher, as she mentioned in the podcast we did with her. She plays for Girona, a Spanish team, and I'm probably butchering the pronunciation for that. But they someone in our Discord. Another reason to join our Discord is Casta's kind of been on it way more than I have. He's probably watched the majority of Girona's games. But I've been able to kind of catch some here and there, and they started off like the year kind of as one of the best teams, and it seems like they've kind of fallen back to earth. Maybe that's the departure of Valkyrie Leticia Ami here, who went to Unrivaled. That she's not on that team now, and I feel like probably the record since she left hasn't been as great. But I haven't watched enough to know what really their issues have been outside of maybe Casta had mentioned that Justė's scoring production has maybe gone down a little bit just because maybe teams are game planning against her better. They know that she's a primary focus and how to guard against her. But, every time I watch her, I'm just like pretty impressed of like just how smart of a player she is. And even though maybe the shot's not falling as it was in the last game, the rebounds and the playmaking's there. Like, it's not like she's a non-factor if she's in the game, just a smart basketball player and is always just going to make the right play. I think sometimes you want to see like the selfishness, honestly. You want to see her take over and just like have a get the F out of the way. I'm on a run right now. But I think she plays, maybe it's, I don't know what it is, but I think she ended the game with maybe like 3 points, and she didn't score until like the fourth and like a heave, like a longer three. And I think she was wide open on that shot, but they played against Fenerbahce. And that's like basically like damn near a WNBA All-Star team. It has Misamin, it has Gabby Williams, it has Uzun, it has K-Mac, it has Julie Alamon, it has Ileana Rupert. Like, there's just a ton of WNBA talent on that team, and they are always like historically a good team. At least since I've been paying attention, that it's a Turkish team. And who else? I think Monique Billings was on that team before she went to Unrivaled. But yeah, no, I mean, probably seen like maybe like 5 games off and on for Girona, and I think Justė is going to be fine. Like the when I watch, I'm just like, wow, she's so good at just that 3-point shot. Just looks so good, and I am just like, I can't wait until she's able to get more wide open looks with the Valkyries.
Now, the offense that she plays in right now compared to the Valkyries offense, is there anything you can take from her usage, how often she's getting the ball? Like, it sounds like she's very much a team player, so she's not always looking for her shot. But as we saw last year with the way that they ran their offense, like, the whole goal is to put up as many 3-pointers as humanly possible.
Right. So her play style kind of fits with that if she's going to be able to just get these 3-point shots. I wonder how much they're going to use her in, like, say, the pick and roll or something, because I feel like when I watch her at Girona, she's not as much involved on like the on-ball action as it is like just kind of being a catch and shoot player, which I again, I've only watched like a select few games, so I haven't really seen everything, but I feel like that's a misuse of her talent, and she has to be more on ball. She has to be more involved in pick and roll action to be able to generate like a mid-range look that she can hit. But there's stuff that she needs to work on, and I think she knows it too, and she mentioned it on the podcast, but defense, and just getting stronger. Right. But other than that, I'm always pretty like impressed when I watch her play, just considering how young she is. I think she's 20, or I think she's 20. And just being that smart about playing the game is always impressive to watch.
Now, I remember our conversations about her earlier in the season. It seemed like earlier in the season you were like, she's going to be a perfect fit. Like, she's going to do everything that they need her to do. But maybe over the time span, and then this last game that you watched, I wonder if she is wearing down a little bit just from so many games and the things that she said that she needed to work on.
Yeah, and I think Eurobasket is, when she plays for Lithuania, she is like the far and away best player. So like she's, the focal point, and she's involved in almost, 75% of the actions. But when she plays for, her Spanish team, it's definitely much less than that. And I would still say she's probably like one of the best players, but there are more experienced veteran players that are confident with the ball in their hands to run an action and to play the point. So she's probably just less featured. But yeah, no, I think teams are probably game planning her against her a little more. Like I would say the scout would be just be physical and play up in her grill and see if she makes the wrong call and the wrong pass. I think most of the time she makes the right one, but I could see how you can get it under her skin a little bit by just playing a little more physical.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's going to be interesting as we are at the end of February here. We'll talk about the CBA here in a second, but they put a deadline in, and it's like this stuff. If we have a season, it is going to be revving up really quickly, like games within like 2 months. Like if the schedule stays what it's supposed to be, so that means she's coming off of this season that she's having and she'll probably have a small break and then right back into it, kind of like how the college players are gonna handle it.
We say it, probably once every couple weeks. That's why, the Athletics WNBA show is called No Off Season, because they're covering women's basketball year round, but not just they're covering it, is that the players are also playing hoop year round. The majority of the players, except for I think just Caitlin and Asia.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this year Sabrina, but everyone else is basically just in a league year round, whether it's Unrivaled, whether it's an international league with the Turkish, Spanish, EuroLeague. It's just AU in Tennessee or in Nashville. And yeah, there's nonstop hoops, college to the W really quickly. Who were we waiting on? We were waiting on Janelle Salon last year to come to the Valkyries because she was in, what team was she playing for? Was it no, it wasn't the French league. I think it was the Turkish league, maybe the finals or something, or I forget which league she was, but she was in like the finals, legit like finals MVP as the training camp was starting. So they had to wait for her to get there. And as they were making cuts, they was just like, yeah, Janelle's not getting cut. Like she's in the finals right now and about to be a finals MVP for this league and this team.
So let's we're gonna push any Unrivaled conversation into next week because the playoffs are gonna start soon. And although I will mention the one-on-one stuff was actually pretty fun. Chelsea Gray mopped up with everybody to win it. And
how great was it that was like simultaneously happening as like this, the 3-point and dunk contest?
Terrible dunk contest was happening.
Yeah. That was good. Yeah. Probably good publicity for them. Is it like, look, these women are playing ones, and this is the thing that the men are embarrassed to go for.
Yeah. And then Steph, after the 3-point shootout, he's like, we got to get the band back together. We need to make this the event.
I remember it was a dunk contest maybe like 2 years ago or something, and they were starting to do market next year, Jaws on the phone with Anthony Edwards after this one. Oh, let's see if we can get whatever happened to that, man. That was not that long ago, and they were trying to do the same. I think Steph and Dame and Clay are actually going to do it though.
Yeah, because they're made. They're not insecure. They don't have to worry about missing a dunk and being on.
And I know that dunk contest thing's a little more layered. Like, there's just the negatives far outweigh the positives. Like, maybe you're not getting paid out for it. You could have Jace Richardson moment where you just hit the back of your head and you're a forever meme on the internet.
That poor dude.
So I see that. I know that it's layered and that the negatives can outweigh the positives, but man, just from a fan perspective, we kind of just want you to be like, yeah, you make $30 million a year, go out and perform. Like, I want to see a show.
I don't know. I don't know if anyone else has ever been injured in the dunk contest, but it doesn't, it is a very explosive event. And so there is possibility, but it's really more about the emotional part of it than the physical part of it for these guys. Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about the current situation with CBA. So the league, the most recent news is that the league basically said to all of the teams and to the Players Association that they need to have a handshake deal by March the 10th, or the season could be impacted. Now, there's not really too much detail about what that means. Like, does that mean they lose games? Does that mean that things get, chunked closer together? Because all of these things still have to happen. We have 2 expansion teams who don't even have the list of players that they can draft, not had the expansion draft yet. We still have a free agency. we have the thing before the free agency, which is the teams who, if we still have this rule that allows them to core their players, like that happens kind of before free agency, and then you still have the draft. So there's so many things that are left to happen, and they finally put a date in and said we need to do this or things are going to get impacted. I don't know. Do you feel like that's going to create some urgency, or does it really matter? Because what they're arguing about, it's like whoever blinks first loses.
Yeah, because it was the WNBA that that like made this handshake deadline, right? Like I just don't feel like the players are they're like the WNBA is trying to create some sense of urgency, like okay, and there is urgency, right? Like how much stuff would have been completed by now? Like you already mentioned a couple of things: expansion draft, the coring, thing, and free agency, but I just feel like the WNBA, like as of a most recent proposal, it just felt like the two sides were still so far apart. I just don't see the WNBA Players Association being like really phased by that deadline. Like that's more, yeah.
There are a couple of positive things that have happened of late, though. The first thing is that they finally hit their revenue sharing target, because the deal that they signed before the pandemic, they had to hit a certain revenue share. They had to hit a certain target, and then the disbursement of extra funds would happen. Because of COVID and everything after COVID, they did not hit those revenue sharing targets. But this past year, they did. So that's a positive thing.
Why I want to know though, was it reported on why it took that long to come out? Was it genuinely just like, okay, we didn't have the calculations until now? Or was it like the league was trying to hide something like that? Because that bodes in the player's favor of being like, see, like,
or it bodes into the owner's favor saying, okay, maybe these revenue sharing targets aren't hard to get. And if you work with us, we can set them so that both sides are happy. Like I think it could go both ways. I'm not saying that, this is necessarily something only positive,
true,
for that sense. So I think that's a positive thing that happened. And I guess the next thing that that happened is, they did come to some sort of agreement on smaller things. So it shows that they are working a little more closely together, and maybe there are some concessions happening. But it's still, the big one is going to be about the salary cap. And they're both looking at it from different perspectives, which is kind of interesting, because the players want, at I think it's 27.5% of the gross, and the league is saying, no, we'll give you X number of whatever the net is. But if you look at it from a gross perspective, it's probably like closer to like 15% gross or something like that. So I think, and I looked at this, and there's some really sharp people who are putting together some great pieces when it comes to this stuff. And I think last year they were at like under 10% gross, the revenue that the players got. So to ask for to be from under 10% to jump up to 27.5, that's a pretty big jump. You're more than doubling. Now, should the league do more than just, times it by 1.5? Maybe they should. Maybe that should be a little bit more. Again, in the negotiation, what I was thinking, I wonder what would happen. Now, whatever way you want to explain it, whether it's through gross or through net or through whatever, but what if the league got closer to 20 and said, you guys want 27.5, we'll get to 20, and over the 5 years, you hit these markers and it eventually gets to 25. I wonder, and that may be what they're doing right now, for all we know. We haven't heard anything about that. But I wonder if the league is actually working towards that, or if they're like hardlined at, at what they're saying right now. Because the players will have to come down, the league will have to come up. Will they meet in the middle? I don't know who has the leverage there. But when you're talking about March 10th being 2 weeks away, a little bit less than 2 weeks away. Like, I'm hoping that there's some movement. I'm hoping that these talks are happening. And the problem is that, again, it's about who's blinking first. The league, I forget how long it took for the league to send in a new proposal. And then they send in their new proposal, and then they're like, well, the players aren't acting in enough urgency. And the players are like, it took you guys like over a month to get us the last proposal. So quit. It's really about this public perception stuff.
Right.
And but the problem with these negotiations and them being so public is there's a trust that is like right in front of our eyes. The trust is just slowly going away. So, and who knows? We don't know how much trust there was there in the first place, especially when Nafisa Collier talks about the owner and the way that she did from Jump Street. So I'm hopeful that we can see some progress, and maybe that March 10th date is really not a real date. Maybe it was maybe the real date is really like March 17th and they can still do everything. But you're really just trying to get them back to the table and get them working. So I'm hopeful. This podcast is hopeful. If we don't have a season, I have no idea what we're going to talk about. But if we do have a season, all of this stuff is going to be truncated in a small amount of time. So we're going to have tons of stuff to talk about, maybe too much stuff to talk about. So that's that. And we'll circle back when we hear, like, I'm constantly looking at the athletic app, looking for Sabrina's name and going like, okay, I want to see what Sabrina says about this. So I'm on it. I'm looking for anything and everything that comes to that comes up about this. Okay. The thing that I wanted to get your thoughts on was our friend Conrado Pascual, who's been on this show a couple of times already. He put out his mock draft. Now, Conrado, he writes for the Center Hub. He's the digital content person for the Center Hubs. Actually, I don't know how much writing he's doing, but I know that's his jam right now. He's also does a podcast called East Meets West. And he put together a mock draft that I thought was pretty interesting because he has been steadfast that Awafem should not be the number one pick.
Yeah.
And every other mock draft I have seen says that Awafem is going to be the number one pick. So very interested to see or to hear your thoughts on his board. So I'll read out his top 4 because he also has a couple other players that are higher on this list than what we saw from Sabrina's mock draft from the other day. Okay, so he has AZ Foot at 1. She is, by the way, almost 4 years older than Awafem. He has Awafem at 2, Lauren Betts at 3, and Kiki Rice at 4. Now, I called this a mock draft, but he calls it a big board. So this has nothing to do with where the teams may want to draft.
Yeah, he's saying these are just the best.
More to do with who he believes are the best players. So if you when we bring him on, we'll have a discussion over what players fit some teams better. But what did you think of that 4 as far as the big board?
Yeah, I mean, like cards on the table, like I do trust Conrado, more than my own opinion on a lot of this stuff, just because of how much time he's put in and how, I haven't put in as much. But I think that, just from what I value, NBA and WNBA is like, from a prospects perspective, like I don't think you can go wrong at AZ and Awafem 1 or 2. I probably would lean Awafem just because of, her size and the way she moves at 6'3". And the way she passes for a big and the way that she could play defense and and also the fact that she's 4 years younger than AZ Fudd. Like, I just think that there's a lot of potential there and it's a lot of realistic potential and not really like this, project type of potential. It's more like you could see like the scalability and see like, okay, someone who plays that defense that well, who's this young and, moves the way she does at this size. Like, this almost feels like a kind of can't miss prospect. And I'm not saying she's going to be like some MVP type of player. I think that, we're looking at, her floor is probably like, high level starter and her ceiling is like all W type of player. And with AZ Fudd, you know, she was a former number 1 high school recruit the year after Paige, and she's a 5th-year senior, and she's an incredible ball player. Like I think that she's the best 3-point shooter in the in college, and will, you know, achieve that height in the WNBA. Not like, it will not take that long for her to be like top 3-point shooter in the league. I think she's also a can't miss type of prospect. Like I don't see a world in where AZ Fudd is a bad player ever. Like I don't, it's really just injury dependent. And you haven't had to worry about an AZ Fudd injury in a while, whereas she kind of did start her college career with a lot of injuries. But you know, I think that I think she's like I think honestly, both of these prospects are prospects that will fit on whatever team you put them on. It does not matter. So I think kind of looking at the Lynx, just like their ability to potentially just add AZ Fudd to an already great roster is just like a little unfair. And you know, she's just gonna do all the right things. She's a great defender, great 3-point shooter. I think my pause with her as a player is just her being able to, you know, initiate self-creation looks at the next level. I don't know if Conrado anticipates that, if that's going to be a strength of hers, or he's just kind of like, look, like, you know, this player can play defense at a high level and is going to be one of the best 3-point shooters in the league. Like that already alone in a weaker class should be considered a number 1 player. And I would agree with that. And, you know, maybe he does buy the self-creation, and I would probably agree with that too. But I think in terms of just what I value as a prospect, I'd go Awa Pham 1. In terms of Lauren at the 3, for me, like, I think the way like I would maybe feel about that type of selection is that you just don't really believe in many of the other prospects, because I think Lauren Betts is a good basketball player. I've watched her a lot. I just don't really buy the archetype of, like, I feel like we're fading away from the 6'7", you know, center that can't shoot. But she's a great passer. She's a great defender. She moves well. Like, I don't know. It's just, you know, her not being able to shoot the 3, and, you know, her maybe being able to be at the next level targeted on the perimeter if you want to get a switch and go by her. Or, you know, I just feel like some of the best teams don't really utilize that type of height in their player. Like, you know, Asia Wilson's the best player in the league. Like, they weren't really throwing out, you know, someone who's that tall with her. It was more like she, in the most important moments, it's like she's one of the tallest players on the roster. And but, you know, I think the obvious omission is Olivia Miles, who I think just I could see why she's not there, but I would probably have her there just because I think that, you know, I value IQ and passing, and I think she's the best out of anyone here with that. She's just incredible with like her vision. And like, I remember watching her for the first time in college, and I think it was honestly last year because she missed her entire sophomore year, or it was her junior year. One of the years she missed, Hannah Hidalgo's rookie year, she missed that entire year with injury. And so when I watched her, when her and Hannah were on the court together, I was just like, holy crud. Like, I felt like I was watching, you know, like men's college basketball or even the NBA, just the way that she could come off a pick and roll and just like dish it to someone, and just like it's picture perfect, and it's just like no look, and it's flashy. And I was just like, whoa. Like, I think the question for her has always been the 3-point shooting, but I think the percentages look good. I will say that jump shot has never looked good to me, like just in terms of the way it looks. So I guess if you buy it, you buy it. And then I imagine she's probably a 2 or 3 prospect for you. If you don't, you don't. And I could see how she falls. But I think for me, I would just have her in that top 3 just in case, like a what if, like it translates to the next level. Because if it does, then you're looking at like, you know, you're looking at an all-star, honestly, in my opinion. Kiki at the 4, I feel like she's just kind of she's been like a slow riser, I feel like, in draft boards. Like, she was a high recruit coming out of high school. And then I think this, you know, draft class this year, I felt her stock kind of fall, and now I feel like it's coming back up. You know, we watched her play. We like her if she does all the right things. You know, so I'm fine with that.
She doesn't test off the board. She just looks like a steady, really good basketball player.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So that is his first tier. His second tier is Nell Angloma, Iana Martin, Flauge Johnson, Olivia Miles at 8, which is where the Valkyries actually draft. But again, this is not a mock. This is a big board. And then Tanaya Latson at 9. Hawkes would be in the next tier at 10, and we've talked about her a lot. But yeah, I just thought, you know, I thought it was interesting to see. When we do bring him on, we'll ask him sort of about fits, you know, here and there, and just the fact that he in his big board, where I'm sure age is not as big of a deal as it would be on in a mock.
Mm-hmm.
you know, he's got AZ Fudd, who's 23, Lauren Betts, 22 and a half, Kiki Rice, 22, Olivia Miles at 8 is 23. So the Awa Pham being under 20, Nell Angloma still being under 20, Iana Martin being barely over 20. That is going to matter in some of these mocks. It's just the age of these women, and as
that matters, but also like you could probably anticipate. You could probably well, I guess it might change now considering the CBA is agreed on, and then you have more money in the W. But some of those players may get asked by the teams to stash for a year. And
now, I think one of the things that they may, I don't know if this is 100% agreed upon, but I think they are adding roster spots. So
maybe have like a developmental roster spot.
You have developmental roster spots. They don't have enough players necessarily to have a developmental team or league. So they may still want them to go play overseas because they're not getting those reps. But
yeah.
You think about how the Warriors use their the last 2 or 3 spots on the bench, like guys who aren't necessarily going to play, but they practice and, they have to be ready, but they're also not like your tippy top prospects because you want those guys to probably play a little bit more in the G League than to just sit on the bench.
The only thing is that like those leagues don't run at the same time. So it's like, stay in France and, prepare for your Euro team, but that league doesn't even start until the W is over anyway.
They're going to have to invest in a G League type of thing for sure. I mean, it doesn't have to be, as expansive as it is in the NBA, because I know it's probably harder to run than we think. But heck, I'd be down to have a San Jose, whatever G League WNBA team that plays at the San Jose State Event Center. I'd be down with that. I'd go watch. So